Number 46 is an integrating essential skills question, and we're dealing with angles. In the figure below, line M is perpendicular to line N. So we have this right angle right here, and both lines intersect line Q at the same point. They cross all at that point. The measure of angle 1 is 3x minus 10 degrees, and the measure of angle 2 is 2x plus 10 degrees. What is the measure of angle 3? A couple things to note. First is that 1 and 2 are vertical angles, meaning they are congruent. So 1 and 2 are vertical angles. Anytime you have angles on opposite sides of an intersection, they're vertical angles and they're congruent. That means that 3x minus 10 equals 2x plus 10. Now we can solve for x and then we can actually get the angle measurements. But they're asking for the measure of angle 3, which is here. What you want to notice is that because there's a line here, line M, that angles 2 and 3 together add up to 90 degrees because there's a 90-degree angle there, and they have to add up to 180. So angle 2 plus angle 3 is 90 degrees, and we're looking for angle 3. So once we get angle 2, we can figure out what angle 3 is. Here we'll solve for x. We'll bring the 2x this way. We'll bring the 10 this way. So 3x minus 2x is x. 10 plus 10 is 20. So x equals 20, and we'll plug that back into there, and that's 2 times 20 plus 10, which is 40 plus 10, which equals 50. So angle 2 is 50. That means 50 plus angle 3 is 90. Angle 3 is 40. The answer is G. Number 47 is an integrating essential skills question, and it's testing greatest common factor and least common multiple. The greatest common factor of two whole numbers is 10. Let's just start there and do process of elimination. The greatest common factor of two whole numbers is 10. That means we're working with numbers like 20 or 30, and their factor, the greatest common factor, would be 10. They have to be multiples of 10 in that sense. So this would not be a right answer, and that would not be a right answer. We're left with C, D, and E. The least common multiple of these same two numbers is 120. So it's not saying that any multiple, that 120 is any multiple, it's the least common multiple. So we have to take these answer choices in turn. 10 and 20, well, the least common multiple for 10 and 20 would just be 20, because both of them fit into 20. That would not be it. The least common multiple for answer choice D would be 60, because both of them fit into 60. So E is the answer, and the least common multiple here would be 120. Number 48 is also an integrating essential skills question, and we're dealing with triangles. The side lengths of a certain triangle are 4, 5, and 7. Which of the following descriptions best classifies this triangle? And we want to try to draw this to scale. So if that's a 4, that's a 5. Might be a little bit longer here. And then this is 7. Well, first we have to think, is this scalene or isosceles? And obviously it's not isosceles because you have to have two sides that are the same length in order for a triangle to be isosceles. So then the question is this an acute triangle, right, or obtuse? In order for this to be a right triangle, so let's say that the side lengths are 4 and 5, what would the hypotenuse have to be? Well, 4 squared plus 5 squared is hypotenuse squared, so we have to use Pythagorean theorem. This is 16 plus 25 is hypotenuse squared. That's 41 equals hypotenuse squared. So the hypotenuse would be the square root of 41, which is 6.4. We're told that the length is greater than that. It's actually a 7. So if we were to lengthen this into a 7, that means this triangle would really look like that, meaning this angle here would be more than 90 degrees. And if it's more, it's not right, and it's not acute, it's obtuse, The answer is H. Number 49 is a statistics and probability question, and we're working with probability. A professional baseball team will play one game Saturday and one game Sunday. A sports writer estimates the team has a 60% chance of winning on Saturday, but only a 35% chance of winning on Sunday. That means that they have a 40% chance of losing, and here a 65% chance of losing. Using the sports writer's estimates, what is the probability that the team will lose both games? These are two independent events. One does not affect the other. And when that is the case, the probability that both events will happen a certain way is the probability of the first event happening times the probability of the second event happening. So what is the probability that this team will lose on Saturday? 40%. This is 0.4. And the probability that this team will lose on Sunday is 0.65. When we multiply them together, we get 0.26, which is 26%. The answer is D. Number 50 is a functions question, and we're dealing with the domain of a function. The graph of f of x equals x minus 3 over x squared minus 2x minus 3 is shown below. What is the domain of f of x? The domain is all x values, all possible x values. If we look here, that's in the domain. All of these are in the domain because there is a certain point, a certain y value for that given x value. We also see them here as well. But here, there is an open circle, which means that 3 is not part of the domain of this function. Let's go to the answer choices. X does not equal 3, has to be in the answer choice because 3 cannot be part of the domain. Either H or J is the answer. Let's look at the difference. The difference is that J also says that x cannot equal -1. Well, if we look at -1, we see that this function actually does not hit -1. There's an asymptote here. This line, this graph, is going to approach -1, but it's actually not going to cross it. And so the answer is going to be J. Another way that we can make sure that that is our answer is to look at the denominator of that function, x squared minus 2x minus 3. And we know that for any given function, whatever makes the denominator equal to 0 is going to be a value of x that is undefined. So whatever value we can stick into x here that makes the denominator equal 0 is going to be a value that is not part of the domain. X squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. That's the equation that we can set up in order to find that x value. Here we're going to factor, and we can factor that polynomial into two binomial expressions. That's going to be minus 3 plus 1, which means that x equals 3 and x equals -1. These are the two values at which this function does not have a y value. So J is your answer.